Drones Club.
The Drones Club is a recurring fictional location in the stories of British comic writer P.G. Wodehouse. It is a gentleman's club in London. Many of his Jeeves and Blandings Castle stories feature the club or its members. The name Drones has been used by several real-life clubs and restaurants.
Overview.
The Drones Club is in Mayfair, London, located in Dover Street, off Piccadilly. A drone being a male bee that does no work, living off the labour of others, it aptly describes the contemporary Edwardian stereotype of rich, idle young club members. At the same time, though, it should be pointed out that many prominent members do have useful occupations. Pongo Twistleton, for example, is reading for the bar, and other members are mentioned as holding down jobs. Wodehouse based the Drones Club on a combination of three real London clubs. The Bachelors' Club, existed around the turn of the century, then mostly Bucks Club, established 1919, and a dash of the Bath Club for its swimming pools, ropes and rings. The fictional Drones barman, McGarry, has the same surname as the Bucks' first bartender, a Mr. McGarry, Bucks barman from 1919 to 1941, credited with creating the Bucks Fizz and Sidecar cocktails. However, Evelyn Waugh declared that the Drones did not resemble any real club in 1920s London. A real club has been based at 40 Dover Street since 1893, the Arts Club. Other gentlemen's clubs which have existed on Dover Street, but are now dissolved, include the Bath Club, the Junior Naval and Military Club, and the Scottish Club, as well as two mixed-sex clubs, the Albemarle Club and the Empress Club. None of these were ever considered among London's premier clubs of the kind found on St James Street and Pall Mall, and so their ambience often had something of the raucous informality of the fictional Drones Club. About a dozen club members are major or secondary recurring characters in the Wodehouse stories. In addition to Bertie Wooster, Jeeves stories, Pongo Twistleton, Uncle Fred stories, Rupert PSMITH stories, and Freddie Threepwood, Blandings stories, prominent recurring drones include Bingo Little and Freddie Widgeon, plus Monty Bodkin, Barmy Fotheringay Phipps, Tuppy Glossop, Catsmeet Potter Bright, Archibald Mulliner, and the club millionaire Oofy Prosser.
Events.
The Drones Club Annual Golf Rally, the Drones Club Annual Darts Tournament, Sweepstakes, the Drones Club Annual Fat Uncle Contest, Sweepstakes.
Stories.
Among the Wodehouse works, what was later dubbed the Drones Club series is a loose set of separate stories told by various narrators, which are either told at the club, or have some events happening at the club, or a club member for protagonist. The main canon consists of 21 short stories, 8 Freddie Widgeon, 8 Bingo Little, 1 Bingo and Widgeon, and 4 other drones, including the one introducing Pongo Twistleton and his Uncle Fred, as eventually collected in the omnibus. Tales from the Drones Club, 1982, later the Drones Omnibus, 1991. The same set of short stories is also available in their original collections. Collected in Young Men and Spats, 1936. Fate, Freddie Widgeon, Tried in the Furnace, Barmy Fotheringay Phipps and Pongo Twistleton, Trouble Down at Tudsley, Freddie Widgeon, The Amazing Hat Mystery, Percy Wimbolt and Nelson Cork, Goodbye to All Cats, Freddie Widgeon, The Luck of the Stiffhams, Stiffy Stiff'em, Noblesse Oblige, Freddie Widgeon, Uncle Frederick Flits by, Pongo Twistleton with Uncle Fred, Fate, Freddie Widgeon, Tried in the Furnace, Barmy Fotheringay Phipps and Pongo Twistleton, Trouble Down at Tudsley, Freddie Widgeon, The Amazing Hat Mystery, Percy Wimbolt and Nelson Cork, Goodbye to All Cats, Freddie Widgeon, The Luck of the Stiffhams, Stiffy Stiff'em, Noblesse Oblige, Freddie Widgeon, Uncle Frederick Flits by, Pongo Twistleton with Uncle Fred, collected in Lord Emsworth and Others, 1937. The Masked Troubadour, Freddie Widgeon, The Masked Troubadour, Freddie Widgeon, collected in Eggs, Beans and Crumpets, 1940. All's Well with Bingo, Bingo Little with Oofy, Bingo and the Peak Crisis, Bingo Little, The Editor Regrets, Bingo Little, Sonny Boy, Bingo Little with Oofy, All's Well with Bingo, Bingo Little with Oofy, Bingo and the Peak Crisis, Bingo Little, The Editor Regrets, Bingo Little, Sonny Boy, Bingo Little with Oofy, collected in Nothing Serious, 1950. The Shadow Passes, Bingo Little, Bramley Is So Bracing, Freddie Widgeon, The Shadow Passes, Bingo Little, Bramley Is So Bracing, Freddie Widgeon, collected in A Few Quick Ones, 1959. The Fat of the Land, Freddie Widgeon, The Word in Season, Bingo Little, Leave It to Algie, Bingo Little with Oofy Prosser, Oofy, Freddie and the Beef Trust, Freddie Widgeon with Oofy Prosser, The Fat of the Land, Freddie Widgeon, The Word in Season, Bingo Little, Leave It to Algie, Bingo Little with Oofy Prosser, Oofy, Freddie and the Beef Trust, Freddie Widgeon with Oofy Prosser, collected in Plum Pie, 1966. Bingo Bans the Bomb, Bingo Little with Freddie Widgeon, Stylish Stouts, Bingo Little, Bingo Bans the Bomb, Bingo Little with Freddie Widgeon, Stylish Stouts, Bingo Little. Freddie Widgeon. Fate, Young Men and Spats, Trouble Down at Tudsley, Young Men and Spats, Goodbye to All Cats, Young Men and Spats, Noblesse Oblige, Young Men and Spats, The Masked Troubadour, Lord Emsworth and Others, Bramley Is So Bracing, Nothing Serious, The Fat of the Land, A Few Quick Ones, Oofy, Freddie and the Beef Trust, A Few Quick Ones. Bingo Little. All's Well with Bingo, Eggs, Beans and Crumpets, Bingo and the Peak Crisis, Eggs, Beans and Crumpets, The Editor Regrets, Eggs, Beans and Crumpets, Sonny Boy, Eggs, Beans and Crumpets, The Shadow Passes, Nothing Serious, The Word in Season, A Few Quick Ones, Leave It to Algie, A Few Quick Ones, Bingo Bans the Bomb, Plum Pie, Stylish Stouts, Plum Pie. Other. Tried in the Furnace, Barmy Fotheringay Phipps and Pongo Twistleton, Young Men and Spats, The Amazing Hat Mystery, Percy Wimbold and Nelson Cork, Young Men and Spats, The Luck of the Stiffhams, Stiffy Stiffham, Young Men and Spats, Uncle Frederick Flits by, Pongo Twistleton with Uncle Fred, Young Men and Spats. Can be added the 3 interlocking Archibald and Aurelia short stories about drones member Archibald Mulliner, the first one starting at the club, also part of the Mr. Mulliner series. Collected in Mr. Mulliner Speaking, 1929. The Reverent Wooing of Archibald, Archibald Mulliner and Algie Wymondham, told by Mr. Mulliner. The Reverent Wooing of Archibald, Archibald Mulliner and Algie Wymondham, told by Mr. Mulliner. Collected in Young Men and Spats, 1936. Archibald and the Masses, Archibald Mulliner, told by Mr. Mulliner. The Code of the Mulliners, Archibald Mulliner, told by Mr. Mulliner. Archibald and the Masses, Archibald Mulliner, told by Mr. Mulliner. The Code of the Mulliners, Archibald Mulliner, told by Mr. Mulliner. Can be added 5 novels about the adventures of drones as main protagonist. Money for Nothing, 1928, novel about Hugo Carmody and Ronnie Fish. The Luck of the Bodkins, 1935, novel about Monty Bodkin with Reggie Tennyson. Laughing Gas, 1936, novel about Reginald Swithin. Barmy in Wonderland, 1952, novel about Barmy Fotheringay Phipps. Ice in the Bedroom, 1961, novel about Freddie Widgeon with Oofy Prosser. Pearls, Girls and Monty Bodkin, 1972, novel about Monty Bodkin. Related are all stories about those drone members already part of another series, Jeeves and Bertie, Uncle Fred and Pongo, PSMITH, Blandings is Freddie Thruppwood, but more especially. The Inimitable Jeeves, 1923, Jeeves semi-novel, Bertie and Bingo, Some Events at the Club, Leave It to PSMITH, 1923, PSMITH and Blandings novel, also Freddie Thruppwood, Some Events at the Club, Summer Lightning, 1929, Blandings novel with Hugo Carmody and Ronnie Fish, Heavy Weather, 1933, Blandings novel with Hugo Carmody and Ronnie Fish, also Monty Bodkin, Some Events at the Club, Uncle Fred in the Springtime, 1939, Uncle Fred and Blandings novel, Action Started by Pongo, Horace, and Oofy at the Club, Cocktail Time, 1958, Uncle Fred novel, Some Events with Pongo at the Club, Life with Freddie in Plum Pie, 1966, Freddie Threepwood novella, Some Events with the Club's Barman. Relatable is one story, featuring the club or drones as secondary characters. Jill the Reckless, 1921, novel, drone Algie Martin as secondary character, one chapter at the club. Of course, many more stories simply include drones member in some scenes, or being mentioned. Not included are all identical stories published under other titles, in magazines or US versions, or recycled stories, especially Comrade Bingo, and Bingo and the Little Woman, Bingo Little, 1922 magazine stories merged into the semi-novel The Inimitable Jeeves, 1923, Quest, Freddie Widgeon, 1931 magazine story rewritten as The Nightly Quest of Mervyn, Mr. Mulliner, non-drone story, still featuring the Oofy stand-in Alexander C. Prosser, The Ordeal of Bingo Little, 1954 magazine story rewritten as Leave It to Algie, Bingo Little, included above, Unpleasantness at Cozy Cot, Drone Dudley Biffy Wicks Biffin, 1958 exclusive story recycled for the US edition of A Few Quick Ones, 1959, From Fixing It for Freddie, Jeeves story, The Great Fat Uncle Contest, Bingo Little, 1965 magazine rewrite of Stylish Stouts, Bingo Little, included above.
Eggs, beans, and crumpets.
Most of the drone's short stories are also eggs, beans, and crumpets stories, as Wodehouse divides the club members into eggs, beans, and crumpets. This is allegedly based on the habit they have of addressing each other as old egg, old bean, or my dear old crumpet. Although, in fact, no character in the stories actually addresses another character by these nicknames. A few later stories introduce a fourth subset of Drones Club members known as Piefuses. Many of the Drones Club stories begin with unnamed members of the Drones Club talking about the latest exploits of Freddie Widgeon, Pongo Twistleton, Bingo Little, or another of their number. The story then transitions into a particularly well-informed crumpet detailing the specifics of tale to an uninformed egg or bean. Wodehouse had already used this technique in the stories told by his Mr. Mulliner, who refers to his anonymous interlocutors by the name of their drink.
Members.
The total number of members is not established. At the Drones Club weekend in Le Turquet, France, were about 87 members, and not all of them crossed the channel, such as Pongo Twistleton and Horace Davenport. Comparatively, only a few drones have been depicted. Marmaduke Chuffy Chuffnell, Augustus Gussie Fink Nottle, Harold Stinker Pinker, Bates, Hall Porter, McGarry, a barman, Robinson, a cloakroom waiter, eggs, beans, and crumpets, a known narrator, S, and various nondescript members. Dudley Biffy Wicks Biffin, exists only in a non-canon, recycled story.
Real drones clubs.
Some real drones clubs or restaurants exist or have existed, including a drones restaurant exists since the early 1970s in London at 1 Pont Street off Knightsbridge. Previously a burger and fries, it was turned in November 2000 into a gastronomic restaurant by new owner and restaurateur Marco Pierre White. A drones club existed in London at 12 St George Street in Mayfair. Also previously owned by Marco Pierre White and Piers Adam, the smaller restaurant was purchased in 2004 by businessman Ben Goldsmith and turned into a members-only dining club. Membership included pop stars, peers, CEOs, and princesses. This club closed in March 2007 due to losing its location to a restaurant, and may not reopen. Another Drones restaurant, also known as Drones Fenwick of Bond Street, exists in London inside the Fenwick department store at 63 New Bond Street. It was linked to the Drones Club above. The Drones Club of Belgium is the name of a P.G. Wodehouse fan club, founded in 1989, about 60 members as of 2007. A club named The Drones exists at Charterhouse School. The Drones Comedy Club is an informal comedy open mic show hosted by the Chapter Arts Centre. The Drones Club is a live music club occurring in various venues around Stoke Newington in London since 2004. Performers have included Bobby Conn, Holly Golightly, Phil Wilson of the June Brides and Edward Carsbell of the legendary Pink Dots. The Swedish men's style blog The Drones Club focuses on well-tailored men's clothing, hand-sewn shoes and other premium quality men's accessories. According to the editors, an institution for retaining men's style and reintroducing the well-dressed man as a natural element in everyday life. Contains detailed descriptions and manuals for obtaining the optimal fit when buying a suit, numerous posts on how to combine a suit and shirt with ties, handkerchiefs, cufflinks and so on. You will also find other useful things, like how to make your own sauerkraut. Concentrated dandyism and vanity in pictures and writing. A forum for rakish, style-conscious